Welcome, welcome to the You-est You podcast. I'm Julie. I am your host. I am so grateful to be here with you, my friend. I know there are so many places you can be and so many things to listen to, and I'm just honored to be part of your journey in becoming your You-est You. I am so excited. I'm actually recording this intro after the conversation I had with Dr. Kahkshan. She is such an inspiration. And I'm excited to share with you a little bit about her story before you get to hear our conversation. So, as always, I hope you can listen with an open heart, take what resonates, leave the rest. And I'm just, it's a pleasure to be here with you in your orbit, part of the journey together to be our best self. So let me tell you about Dr. Kahkshan Ali. Dr. Kahkshan is trained as a dentist. You will hear this amazing story. She laughingly joked about getting an F in biology and then went for it anyhow and went through medical school, became an amazing dentist. And one of her bigger challenges was she definitely faced her fair share of ups and downs, and having been married and divorced twice before the age of 30, both to narcissists, and really, really finding that dark night of the soul around what is happening in her life. How is she going to bounce back? She embarked on a courageous journey to find love again, mainly first with herself, and was at 40 when she discovered the love of her life, her husband now. Ended up having multiple miscarriages and ended up with a miraculous daughter who's now 13, and realized during her blossoming career that at some point she wanted to shift gears, eventually retire, and fell into the world of coaching. Dr. Kahkshan actually was a student and now graduate of the Life Designer Coach Academy. She is just an incredible woman. She's bold and brilliant and beautiful and has so many words of wisdom to share. So I'm really excited for you to hear our conversation and how she really went through these different challenges with such grace and grit, and how she is now all about helping women, especially those, if you've gone through a divorce, if you've been with someone who's a narcissist, how to really come back to yourself, how to fall back in love with yourself, how to be your Youest You and kind of reclaim your energy. She is a coach today. She's someone that has been such a bright light, and it's been a joy having her both in my coaching program and then getting to watch her soar. So I'm really excited for her to share her story. Sit back and relax. We will have the show notes and ways that you can connect with Dr. Kahkshan. And as always, my friend, from my heart to yours, so much love and so much gratitude for you. This episode has been sponsored by the Life Designer Coach Academy. This is a world-class life coach certification program for anyone who would like to become a masterful holistic life coach. Just go to juliereisler.com/certification for more information. All right. So I am so, so excited for you, my dear listener, to be here today. This conversation. Oh, we are meeting with someone I just adore. Dr. Kahkshan, I am so grateful. First of all, I know we've got a little time difference. Thank you for staying up, for being here with me. I'm just so honored to have you here today. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Julie. I'm the one who's honored. I'm really excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me.
Well, I just, in terms of like where to begin, I know you have an amazing story. You've as a accomplished physician and now coach, we'll get into how you've gotten into these different, areas of your career. But I think what's been really something that I've been so inspired with you is your commitment to really make an impact for other women, especially women that have struggled in relationships. Your story, I remember when you shared it with me, is pretty powerful. And so I was thinking like, okay, just out of the gate, like being your Youest You, like really being authentically you. Maybe you can share a little bit, take us back, because I know you struggled with past, relationships, marriages. I'll let you fill us in, but
Okay.
I think it's pretty empowering to anyone listening.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. So, life was going pretty smoothly for me. I think the biggest, and I've shared this, on Instagram, I think the biggest thing that had happened to me up until I got married was I got an F in biology sophomore year in college. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm never going to become a doctor. My life is over.
Wow.
So that was like the big, and how am I going to tell my dad? It's like, okay, actually, I think I had my older sister tell my dad. So I was like, oh, I don't want to tell dad. So when I went to dental school, it was my last year, and I always wanted to get married, around that age, right? So we, my parents, I mean, the way it's done in our Muslim community is you can get you can also meet people on your own. That's fine. At least in our, there's different ways of doing it. Different families have different ways. But in ours, my parents were all like, if you find someone, that's fine, let us know. Or, families would be like, oh, we know so and so. So, anyways, to make a long story short, I basically agreed to an arranged marriage.
Mm.
And my sisters were shocked and they were like, what are you doing? Oh my gosh. So I was introduced to this guy senior, like a couple months before graduating. And honestly, I met him and he seemed okay, but I didn't really think much about it. Went home, graduated, went home to Saudi Arabia. So I live overseas in Saudi Arabia. I grew up here. So we've been going back and forth between the States and here for like over 45 years. And came home that summer. I was supposed to be starting my residency in Philadelphia in September. And so I came home, for a little break with my parents. And then they're like, because his family was also living over here in Saudi Arabia. And so my parents like, oh, remember that guy you met? Well, they're still interested and the parents want to meet you. Are you open to meeting? I'm like, yeah, sure. Okay, fine. So I met them and they basically proposed. That's how it's done. They proposed. It came over with a ring. I ended up saying yes. My sisters were like, oh my God, what are you doing? I never really thought that I would have an arranged marriage, but most of my cousins, everyone in my family, not my parents, but the majority have had successful arranged marriages. And I thought, sure, why not? Right. And so I said, yeah. Well, we got married and it's actually been almost 30 years now that I got married and the first time. And so then we moved to Philadelphia, started the residency. And what happened was I didn't realize that he was a narcissist. So I married a
Mm.
narcissist. That's basically what ended up happening. And he was classic. So, all the things that narcissists do, he was doing. He didn't start physical abuse yet, but the time that we were together and I was married, and that's actually when I left, when he started to physically threaten. He'd already done a little bit of threatening. He like held a knife to my throat, things like that, right? So,
Mm.
and I was just like really like confused, and I just kept wanting, thinking, okay, I just got to keep making, just keep trying and not realizing. So I was married right after dental school. And then I left him. I had to sneak. I was in Saudi Arabia. We'd come for vacation, and his family was supposed to have another like reception for us. And then I literally had to like escape and
Oh gosh.
have my dad like pick me up without him, and just kind of saying to him, "Oh, I'm going to go and get some things from my parents' house. I'll be back." And I never saw him again. I've never seen him to this day since that day that I left.
Wow.
And not even for the divorce because he wasn't showing up in court. So then it took me like a year. I had to get a restraining order. And, but I think the part that really was the worst, other than going through the grief, because no matter what, even though he was a narcissist in that time, I did love him, obviously was attached to him. So there was a grieving period, but I started doing research once I realized, and the funny thing is the way I realized who he was. And I was watching a Sally Jesse Raphael, her show, and she had brought on, couples, and the guys were all classic narcissists. And when they were talking, and the women were like, they were obviously apart, but they were talking about it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds just like him. And I didn't realize that that's what he was. And then once I realized that, that's when I started doing research in psychiatry. And unfortunately, as most people who have been with, or they really can't be, therapy does not work for them, sadly. And so I had to, because part of me wanted to like maybe get help for him and still stay married. And I realized that wasn't going to work. So anyway, I had to get a divorce, and it took a year, wouldn't show up in court. Finally, I was back in Boston, had to leave my residency. That was really painful. Couldn't complete my residency because it was too dangerous. And then when I did go back to try and ask to come back to my residency, my program director, he's like, let me get back to you. And he's like, I'm really sorry. We're not going to be able to let you come back. And that was just humiliating and awful. And,
Mm.
and maybe about 10 years ago, I ran into one of my residents. I was with 5 male residents, and and he told me, he goes, yeah, we were asked if you should come back. And we were like too afraid of your husband. We knew there was something, he was dangerous. And we didn't want you to come back. And I'm like, okay. So anyways, that's what happened. And then 2 years later, I did basically what I call a rebound marriage, because there was so much stigma and shame that I felt from this divorce, because at that time in the Muslim community, there really wasn't a high divorce rate. This was like 30 years ago. And I felt
Yeah.
like I was the only one, in my social circle or anyone that had gotten divorced. And so there was a lot of, just not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough. And I had always been a really confident person up until that point. And now I had to like totally kind of think things and figure out how to really create that life, and I thought that I was doing the right thing, which is getting married again. And I did that because I was feeling that shame and stigma. And there was red flags with the second marriage also. He also was a narcissist. And I did start a new residency, which was at Yale, and I was so excited to be there. And this time I was able to complete it. So in the middle of that residency, when I realized what was going on, much faster, because now obviously I was experienced with this kind of behavior and stuff. And, I got another divorce, but did not leave the residency and was able to, complete it and everything. So that's basically it. I was married and divorced twice by the age of 30 to 2 narcissists. The second one, I was not arranged. I was introduced to him, and it was of my own, free will and doing it. But that's, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. But that's really why I feel so of the work that I'm doing now as a coach, because I did not listen to my intuition. I did not listen to the red flags. It was just like, oh, I'm going to feel better because through another person's validation or society's validation by getting married again, and then things are going to be okay, which obviously they weren't.
There is there's so many gems in that. I actually, just to go back even before, if it's okay, I just wanted to
Yeah.
say, I thought there was like a nugget, even before these stories, you talked about, getting an F in bio. And I was thinking, for all those people that are like, and you thought you wouldn't be a doctor, and like that wasn't the case. Now, you did medical school, you surpassed that. And so just kind of foreshadowing, like, we can have these really challenging times, like the F maybe in those 2 marriages, like, oh, I could see the correlation, right? Like a little bit of an F in the first and the second, not really you per se, but the experience. And, I think what you said, Kahkshan, about not listening to your intuition or tuning into the red flags, this is really, we're going to go deeper into this, of course. This is really important. And this is one of the reasons I'm so grateful for you and for you to share this so openly. I think it takes a lot of courage. And I can only imagine, like, no one else being in your community that is divorced, like what that might have brought up. Maybe, I don't know, I could imagine feeling there's maybe embarrassment or feeling uncomfortable and so, looking for that in your second marriage and realizing, okay, there's something going on here. Both of these have narcissists. And I, what I'm hearing is you kind of just, turned off the awareness to maybe your intuitive nudges, that inner wisdom. Let's get into, for a moment, before we get into, because I know I don't want to like give it all away, but I know you're doing fantastic now and have an amazing relationship. What did you, I'm really like, I feel like we're doing a little of the coaching that we've talked about and learned, is like, what would you say were some of the greatest learnings or lessons from those 2 marriages? Like, what happened by number 2 when you were like, okay, this is not working? What helped you to really to heal from that, to shift your perspective and, to have this transformation where you were able to find a relationship that's so healthy?
I think for me, the first thing was my faith, and my connection with God, my spiritual connection. Interestingly, of course, there was a part of me when it was happening was upset with God, like, hello, why are you doing this? Like, why do I have to go through this?
Yeah.
So there was that was the initial, like, okay, I'm not a happy camper. Thank you very much. But, but then,
Got
really,
the message.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then understanding and really believing that whatever happens to me through God is meant to happen. And I may not see the good in
Mm.
it right now, but eventually I will see that. And I had to really hold on to that belief, right? And that this is we in Arabic, we use the word nasib. So this is like sort of like my destiny, or just, what's meant to be for me. So that did help once I got through the initial, being upset and angry phase. And so that helped. And then the other thing, Julie, that I found really interesting, like, it was so easy. It would have been so easy to be like, oh, it was an arranged marriage,
Yeah.
like it, there was nothing that I did to create that or whatever. It was just bad luck, things like that. But I had to take ownership of the situation, because in the end, like I said, my parents never forced me. I said yes to the first
Mm.
time. And granted, and the choices that I made in saying yes, allowing such a quick marriage to happen. They were doing it for reasons. His family were doing it just to hide things and whatever. They're, didn't want me to find out a lot of stuff that we, found out about later, not just the narcissism, but other things about
Yeah.
him and his family. So, I had to take ownership of that. And also, especially after the second, I'm like, okay, what am I doing to attract these men, in a
Mm.
sense? Like, what kind of thing am I putting out there? Because I always thought that I was really, I did Army ROTC, and I became a Pershing rifle. And I did all of, it was really adventurous. And so what am I, like, kind of, what energy am I putting out there where they even think that they're going to have, even whatever short period of time they were with me, be able to control me and do whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and so I think having that understanding of not being able to kind of blame, like, my father feels a lot. Even just, I think just a few days ago, I was like, Dad, let's not go there. He feels so much, guilt as a father, especially for for the first one, really. And not for the second one, that was my own choice. But for the first one, and I'm like, Dad, don't, these things happen, whatever. So,
Yeah.
um, and really, taking, as I said, taking that ownership and understanding that, to move forward. Because if I didn't, it would just, I don't think I could have moved forward as well as I have,
Yeah.
you know.
I think, just I'm really amazed, inspired by what you're saying, because it can be very easy. I mean, honestly, as I'm listening, I'm like, okay, it was arranged, like you really didn't have much of a say in it. However, there is way more power in getting that there's some piece that we can all look at, like, what's our part?
Mhm.
Maybe it was saying yes, maybe I love that you really did that inner reflection, inner work of, okay, what's going on in me? What do I need to look at here? And that, what I've seen, and I know, especially in the fields of coaching and helping others, just really getting, there's an empowering aspect there. Also love, that you really leaned on your faith and connection to God here, but also the looking for, knowing there's good in here. There's going to be something that's going to help you.
Mhm.
Um, so now maybe bring us to speed, because you did make a huge transformation in your life. I know you're in an amazing marriage now. I mean, it's like three's a charm. You really, really are proving that.
Yeah.
And I know there were issues with, even miscarriages before, and now you have a beautiful daughter. Again, I don't want to tell your story,
Yeah.
but it's a beautiful one.
Yeah. Well, so I was single for 10 years after the second divorce. I was 30 years old, and then I got married at age 40. And, and, and this time I used a Muslim matrimonial website. So they had a few back, this was what, 18 years ago. I've been married for almost 17 years now. So this was about 18 years ago. And and I had a complete life. I was meeting, I was being introduced to some people along the way, but this time it was so different for me. I was like, I'm not going to say yes unless they're like, really amazing. I'm going to really, make sure I not know them, because we don't really date in Islam. As Muslims, we don't really date. But I would also use, like, I would take my friends or my sisters to meet the guy with me, go out for dinner. I mean, there's so many things you learn when it comes time to pay for the check and stuff like that. I mean, there's like lots of things that happen, right, when you spend a little bit of time with these people. And so I just was just being more careful and really listening to my gut and my feelings and how I felt about these proposals that were kind of coming through. And I moved back to Saudi Arabia to practice. I was in Boston before that, and I decided to move back here. And you started playing golf, and just loved it. Was traveling all over the world and playing golf all over the world, and just had a wonderful life. Had friends and all of that. So I was feeling great. Had a great career, and I was doing all the things that I'd wanted to do. Learn scuba diving, everything. Everything on my bucket list I was doing. Had a great life. It was very complete. And then my nephew was born, and he just turned 18, and I went to go help my sister with him, and she lives in Richmond, for a little bit. And I remember holding him in my arms, and I got that little maternal instinct thing coming back to me. And I was like, oh, okay, I really still maybe want to be a mom, and I need to find a husband. As a Muslim, I can't do it on my own. So I need to find someone, and I'm going to give it one last shot. So that's what I did. I thought, okay, I'm going to try and give it one last shot. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, does. Because I was 39 at the time when I was deciding this. So I went to the Muslim matrimonial websites, and thankfully my husband was on it too, on one of them. And so he reached out to me, and the rest is history. But this time, even the beginning
Mm.
of our relationship, we just like emailed for weeks and weeks. I'd know his name, he'd know my name, for security reasons. I wanted to keep it that way. And I asked just so many questions and let him ask me, and just, so we basically first, like I say, 3 months just got to know each other through emails. And I actually still have all of those, and they're precious to me. They're just so precious, so they're like, so I keep
Mm.
those. And then we met in person. He flew over, he met me and my parents. And my dad was terrified, did not even want me to get married to my husband. I mean, he was so nervous. Like this was going to
Yeah.
be another one of those situations. He had no faith or trust in himself and me and other guys. I mean, it was, as a dad, he was just so worried. And so I just had to keep, my family was really nervous. I had to keep pushing through, and this time listening to my gut again.
Yeah.
But I also, did things like, we both took tests, and we had a psychologist, like, so my lawyer was like, okay, why don't you do this? And my family was like, yes, so there were definitely certain things that I did to try and make sure it was as, he was as normal, as safe as possible, not another narcissist, right? Or whatever. And so, and my husband was, he was just so great, so gracious. And of course, he was like, no problem, and I could just tell from the way he was reacting to all the hoops that he was being made to jump through, that he was the right guy. And 17 years later, he is. So,
Mm.
and I didn't have any children from the previous two. And so my husband, now I'm starting at age 40, we're trying to start a family. So I did end up having 4 miscarriages, 2 before our daughter and then 2 after.
Wow.
And I had her at age 44. So she's a real miracle. I wasn't, I didn't do IVF. I was able to get pregnant naturally, but I just kept having the miscarriages, and they couldn't find any, reasons, possibly age factor, but that was it. So yeah, so she's
Mm.
our little miracle rainbow baby, and she's just absolutely amazing. So blessed to have her.
Okay, friend, I'm just taking a quick break here. I wanted to pause for a moment to share something really exciting and to announce that enrollment is now open for the next cohort of my Life Designer Coach Academy. This is a premier holistic coach certification program. So, this 4-month live program is perfect if you are looking to enhance your skills or want to become a spiritual life coach. I will teach you my proprietary sacred coach approach, as well as the techniques that I have been trained in my master's degree and that I've been using for over a decade with hundreds of clients and leaders worldwide. This program, I want you to know, is not only for those who want to become a coach, but also for anyone wanting to grow personally. And I did want to share, you might have heard my interview with Emmy Ray talking about coaching. She is one of my graduates who is a life designer coach for high performing entrepreneurs. Emmy has said, after doing many, many trainings, that this was one of the best investments she has ever made in herself. Yay. So I want you to know I would be so honored to have you in this next cohort and help you become the best version of yourself while empowering others to do the same. Let's work together so you can do what you love. You can help others to create and design a life they love and to shift consciousness. Learn more and enroll today at juliereisler.com/certification. All right, back to the podcast. Oh my gosh. So tuning into intuition, I have chills all down my legs and my arms. I just think, listen, hopefully you're still with us listening to this amazing story. Let me just like bottom line this for you. Anything's possible. So you're hearing Dr. Kahkshan tell this story of literally 3 times and, having those 2 marriages, learning. And what I'm hearing is that 10 years off, you really got, you found yourself, your connection to you. You had time to really enjoy, to get into the things, your practice, your golfing, yourself, really connecting to you. And so by the time you were ready and met your husband now, to me, it just sounds like you've done so much of that inner work and grounding. The other thing is just miraculous to hear, for those who I know have struggled with having children, like you just never know, at 44, your daughter, who is now a teenager, who I know like took your makeup before we started. She's sounds like mine.
Yeah.
Sounds like my daughter.
Yeah.
The hope and the what's possible, and just staying in that space of really what you desire and believe, like it's just very powerful, Kahkshan, what you're sharing, your story. I am curious, and then of course the F in bio, I think that's so funny. And then of course becoming a dentist, doctor. What, in terms of coaching, because I know you've had practices, you've been successful as a dentist, like what made you on this next part of your journey? What made you kind of add that in or shift gears a little bit? Because I think it's so interesting how, and you've had a very full profession. What was the impetus? What made you feel pulled to coaching?
I think what happened was, well, first I became a client. I got my own coach for the first time. I've always been to personal development and growth. I mean, I saw Tony Robbins, and I actually got to meet him in person back 30 years ago when he came to Boston. And so just always did, I still have his cassette tapes that,
Oh my gosh, I love it.
that's how back long ago it was, right? Cassette tapes were the things that were being used. So, so, so a few years ago, I just started feeling, I don't know, a little bit depressed, just not right. This was back in 2017. Yeah. So 2000, about 6 years ago. And the other thing I was also exploring was, what did I want to do after retiring from dentistry? Because this is a really physically demanding job. And I knew that I wasn't going to, I only wanted to do it to a certain age or a certain period of time, just because of the physical demands that we have. And, so I was kind of exploring like what I wanted to do next career kind of thing. And as I was getting coached and really just fixing all the different parts of my life, because I mean, I was like, why am I feeling this way? I've got a great husband. I'm blessed with a daughter now. So what's going on, right? So is that still, once again, that, as you said, that inner reflection and just trying to figure out what's going on. And so when I got my coach and I started working with him, and I worked with my first coach for 2 years, and loved the process, and just had such a much better life, and everything was just so much better. My relationship with my husband was better. Everything was so good, just, overall health and everything. I was like, this is what I want to do. I mean, and so I became a certified high performance coach back in 2019. And I thought, this is how I want to help people. And then, it's interesting because as a dentist, my patients come to me and they share a lot. Like they'll see me more than they'll see, let's say, their physician or something, So they share. I've had not just women, but men too. And I love talking to people and connecting to people. I find it really easy. And I think I enjoy dentistry because I get to do a lot of, interaction and talking with my patients. And so there was like an element of coaching, element of therapy, which obviously is different than coaching, but there was that connection in that, they would really share a lot of things about their personal lives and things that were happening with me, and so it just seemed like a very kind of natural way to go for like the next career and finding a profession that is really noble and being able to help people, so that's how it happened.
I love, one of the things I'm hearing that's kind of this golden thread here is just really starting to honor that deeper intuition. And, some might call it following your bliss, following where it gives you energy. And, you know, this is something that I think comes up often. You said this, like life was great. It wasn't like anything was really wrong. And that finding this coach for yourself, there were areas that you realized, this field actually was kind of that next chapter that you could land into, even though you still really have enjoyed the practice that you've built. And I think it's important. It doesn't have to be like life is completely falling apart to work with a coach.
Exactly. Yeah. So
You can,
true. Yeah.
right?
Yes. I think, and thank you for bringing that up because I think that is really, really important to know is that it's not about when things are just awful and bad. It's funny. It's like what my patients, like today, I had a couple of patients and they're coming to me and the tooth is just gone. And they're like, I'm in pain now. And I'm like, why did you wait to this point when you're in pain? Like you've had the cavity and the big hole in your tooth, and it's sort of the same. We don't have to go to a coach when it gets to that level. We
Yeah.
can also be going to a coach when things are good. Just like I want patients to come to me getting their checkups and things are still good. And I can help them keep that and just keep building on the good,
Yes.
and just making life better for ourselves. And so yeah, that's what I got from the coaching for sure. Yeah.
That's such a great metaphor. It's funny. I think of it often as like, we get plaque on our teeth, which you obviously understand way better. And I'm one of those people that go 3 times a year just to
Yeah.
like
Oh, good.
be absolutely sure. I don't know. I have a thing with that. So, but I think about like, our beliefs or stories, they become like plaque, and if we're not aware and not having someone with us, really, it's almost like it's so funny. It's a great analogy for you. It's kind of like this, energetic dentist, really, like a coach is helping to remove that plaque so you don't have this crazy buildup or cavity.
Mhm.
I love that kind of just using that example. It doesn't have to get to where it's really painful.
And I'm kind of enjoying this analogy. So just to take it one more
Yeah,
step further,
do it.
patients will come in and they don't even know they have plaque on their teeth until I show it to them.
Oh, there you go.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So
yeah,
it's like
yeah,
sometimes we don't even realize
yeah,
that something is going on and that we need help for
yeah,
until, yeah.
yeah.
So
Very well said. Yeah, beautiful. Now we got like the full metaphor and it actually really works. That's perfect. I love it. I am curious because I remember, we had met and I think it was through the exchange community. I know a lot of people here are connected to that. Love that community as well. And I remember you had done the high performance coaching already, and we were talking. And I've been coaching for a long time, but the life designer coach program, I think it was in its like third cohort, maybe at this point, second or third. When we were chatting, it had like just gone through maybe the first two,
yeah,
and
it's like 2 or 3 you had gone through. I
two or
think
three,
yeah.
and I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to have you in it, but I'm not sure. You've gone through a coaching program, and I was so excited and also like, oh, how interesting. Like it was still helpful. You still decided to do it. And I'm curious, how was that experience for you? Because you had coaching already. And what did you feel you got from being in the life designer coach program that added to what you had?
I think what I loved and the reason I wanted to do it is, well, first of all, you, Julie, because
Aw,
that I mean that makes a difference. Like, who is the person
Yeah.
that you're getting certified from. And, that's a, big thing. And so even though I loved the high performance certification and I still use it and I love it, but I think for my clients, I really want to make sure that I have a variety of tools and methods and things. And I love life design. First of all, I love the name because that to me, that's just so like, yes, let's design our lives, right? Let's,
Yeah.
and so I love that. And that sacred intuition, that whole piece, you bring that to the
Mm.
coaching. And I love that because as I said, that also was really guiding me and helping me in some ways, without me like knowing it when I was going through all those experiences and things and challenges that were happening. And to really be able to understand how to use that and how to hold that space even more so. So going through your program, I loved it. And it also really, I think the difference about your program with some of the other is there's a method and yet there's not.
Mm.
You know what I mean? And so there's such a, like a beautiful kind of flow and sort of openness and expansiveness that we have when we're learning from you and, with your program that I think is different because I'm still getting another certification, right now,
Yeah.
just because I like being able to use, as I said, different things, but yours is different from, I would say, all those other certificates. They're more
Mm.
very sort of, more not clinical in a way, I guess you could say.
Like
You know,
formulaic, maybe more.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I love them, and I use them. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I think yours
Yeah.
stands out a little bit differently from that.
Well, and I so appreciate that. One of the things I loved is you came with all this, you had this background already. And it's interesting because that having that room, right? So there's the method and the framework, but also leaving room for intuition and flow, which, I think is incredible given that you came from the medical background. There's probably less of that. Like, we're just going to flow with the conversation. I don't think your patients would be so psyched if you're like, I'm going to flow with your mouth and see, like,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
probably.
exactly.
And so I just think it's really cool. I've seen this with others who've done it that are like we had, had a couple lawyers and those that have been trained in more of that, the left brain, but also, there's a structure. Of course, there is a structure with this. But one of the things that's been fun to see with you is really leaning into your intuition and then watching what you're doing with wanting to help other women, and would love to share like what got lit up inside of you? Like, what did you realize after? Because I remember talking to you after, during and after this, like, okay, I really want to help other women. Like, I think there's something about how can I make a difference with people that might be going through something like I did, which is often a good reason to get into coaching, frankly, because you want
Right.
to serve and help. So how has they say the mess been part of your message? How has the challenges of those two marriages, the narcissism, what you went through, how is that baked into like what you are wanting to do and doing now?
Yeah. So now I'm helping women who've gone through divorce, and especially if they've been married to narcissists, because I mean I think that's um, a very sort of specific experience that
Yeah.
and I'd have to say it's probably one of the worst. I mean, let's call it what it is. I mean, it's pretty
Yeah.
horrific when you've been married to a narcissist, with all the emotional and mental and physical abuse that can occur. So yeah, so I'm really excited because, as you said, I finally kind of figured out what I wanted to do, because it's been a journey getting to this point where, like, yeah, why am I not sharing my experience and my story and helping other women? Because even before I started doing the divorce coaching, I had started a group, and it's kind of sort of like right now quiet. I haven't like really uh, launched it officially, but it's called the Barefaced Breakfast Club, because I
Mm.
wanted to really let and help women, empower them, and make them understand that the most important relationship is the one that we have with ourselves. I mean, even if we have partners and great, partners and stuff in life, but at the end of the day, it's how we feel about ourselves that is going to, and I even, talk about this in terms of, if you want to attract a healthy partner, you have to be having that space and that feeling and that self-love and self-acceptance for yourself, and really feeling all that worthiness. So coaching someone after they've been through divorce to really help them be able to recreate that life that they want for themselves, as you know, life design. So just designing that life afterwards. And that can mean different things for different people. For me, for a period of time, I didn't care about getting married again,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mean, and some women are divorced and they've got kids and they're like, I'm perfectly happy with me, my kids, my career. So everyone's different. And what I want to help with, though, is just, as we were just talking about, is just to really have you be able to create that life that is just, you just love it so much. Like, you come home and you're just like, yes, you're happy in your home, in your home environment. You're happy when you're going out, when you're going to work, your career is where you want it to be, just all the aspects and all the areas, finances, everything, right? The independence. So yeah, so I mean, that's, it just means a lot to me, because going through a divorce, for any woman is just a really huge challenge, and it can be very difficult. And I know I went through this too, because most of my friends at the time, and I would say that my friends, I think only maybe one or two have been divorced since then. And now they get it. And not to say that they weren't supportive, they were extremely supportive, but at the same time, it's just a very different challenge to have in
Yeah,
your life.
absolutely. I just I so acknowledge you, and I think it's just it takes something, to take yourself out of those two experiences to grow, to do that inner work, and then to really design the life you love, which you've done, and now to kind of like, I almost see it like I'm going to turn around and help all those women that I can to design a life they love, and that can happen even when you've gone through divorce, been married to a narcissist, and I love this reminder that the most important relationship is with ourselves, with yourself. I think this work is so important. It's one of the reasons I really wanted to have this conversation, Kahkshan, because you're living it. And I think, as a coach, this is what I've seen, being in alignment with, doing that inner work, having that relationship with yourself that is one of compassion and love and grace and graciousness. That's what we then put out there. And so that can be very healing and just really grateful. I think it's incredible how you pivoted and are on this, as a lifelong learner, which I think is fantastic. You really want to help other women. And I, before we wrap, I always love to ask if there are any, me, I got my little weird lingo, but I love heart flares. It's like when your heart's like, wait a minute, I didn't say this. So I always love to ask if there's a heart flare, maybe something that is just on your heart, or maybe I didn't ask you that just wants to be said.
I think the heart flare, and like, it's funny, like even when we started, there's like moments I just felt like just this emotion, just a little emotion. And I think for me, first of all, first heart flare is for you, Julie. I love you. I think you're amazing. And so thank you
Aw.
so much for letting me share, be here and share my story and be able to, share the work that I'm doing with women. And then the other heart flare is for those women. I want any and all women to understand. And I didn't really kind of explain the Barefaced Breakfast Club. I'm going to be launching all of that later, properly and stuff, but really that we don't need to ever feel like we have to wear a mask, or, we can just
Mm,
show up like totally barefaced and
mm,
be ourselves, and know that we were born and will always be worthy. Our truest essence of ourselves is miraculous. And it's so
mm,
easy, like even for myself as a coach who's got all the tools and everything, it's so easy for us to get down on ourselves and have that inner critic, mean girl voice inside. And so I really just want to say that that's something that I will always be fighting against and helping other women fight against, because I have to do it on a daily basis. Whatever the way women are the society and the pressures and everything that we have on us. And I just think it's so important because we're, just such nurturing, incredible human beings. And I'm one of four girls, and I went to an all girls boarding school, and I went to an all women's college, and I love women.
Oh,
And one last little thing I want to say, the reason. And so when the doctor first told me that she thought it was going to be a boy, and no, I mean, I was like, as long as it's healthy, I didn't really mind. There's that little bit of like, oh, okay, I really wanted a girl. And then we realized a little bit later, when the ultrasounds were a little bit more clear, it was going to be a daughter. And I was just like, yes, so I'm doing a lot of this too for my daughter. I mean, she knows the stories and stuff, to some extent, but,
mhm,
and I just really want to be able to help her and, younger women. Also, I'm going to be taking the story to universities
mhm.
and things here locally, because I really want, to be able to share the story so that young women, for that intuition part and listening to your instincts and your gut,
Yeah.
really, really, understand that that's so important to do.
Beautiful. So beautiful. I think just one of the things I was like, "Oh my god," I could feel myself almost wanting to cry is just remembering that our truest essence is a miracle and we're always worthy. And, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love and adore you. I love how you are listening to your heart and your intuition and your stand for women, your daughter, for her daughter, for anyone that's gone through any kind of challenge like this. It doesn't have to be that way. You can shift and change. There is transformation that's possible. And thank you for just being a beautiful shining light and example of being your Youest You.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh, and I will just say, oh my gosh, I'm almost welling up with tears here. So, to you, my beautiful listener, we are here cheering you on. I'm going to speak for Dr. Kahkshan because I know she is. We're cheering you on to be your Youest You, whatever that might be. So, whatever challenges you've had or are going through right now, know you're not alone. Know that there are people here to support, friends, coaches, healers, people that are on this path with you. And please remember you are always worthy. And as Dr. Kakshan said, that miraculous essence is who you are. That's how you were born. And we will always see that in you. So thank you for being here, part of this conversation. Check out the show notes. We'll have all of Dr. Kakshan's information. She's also a certified life coach with my program, and we'll have her info. And I just thank you for being here on this journey, committed to being your truest, Youest You. Lots and lots of love. My friend, I'm so grateful and honored to be here with you on your journey and being your Youest You. Thank you for watching this episode, for being part of this incredible community and this mission to really step into your light, to your highest purpose. I believe that as we all do that, we all can really be our best selves and uplift consciousness and humanity. So thank you. I also wanted to say that if you are looking for greater support right now, maybe you're having a health concern or you're looking to really step into that next version, best version of yourself, please come connect with me, whether it's for more resources or coaching or guidance. I would love to support you in any way that I can. Just go to juliereisler.com. You can book a powerful one-on-one breakthrough session there. You can connect with me. I would love to meet you. I'd love to hear how I can be on this journey with you. And before I forget, if you'd like a little more of this good vibe tribe and would like to digest these episodes with a high vibe community, just go to Facebook and look up the Youest You podcast community. You'll find us there. Love always. And thank you so much for taking the time and energy to truly stepping into your authenticity and being your Youest You.